lots of questions. So hint, hint, right, when it comes to it. Okay, so we're almost done, believe it or not. We just got one section, and this section actually isn't that bad as well, because we're actually going to be skipping one part, which is actually pretty fun when it comes to it. Okay, so first part is 1.4 quadratic equations. So we're going to learn how to solve any quadratic in the world in this format here, where it's a number x squared plus a number x plus c equals 0. And we want to solve for these type of equations. Now, I know some of you guys have probably seen this before when it comes to it, but I actually want to give you guys a little interesting snippet. If you guys are freshmen, you guys have probably seen this already in high school, but about a year ago, one of my students actually showed me this method. I was blown away on how to do it, and it was really cool. And I actually want to show you guys here. Okay, so if you're not comfortable solving for a variable, maybe you'll like this method because it gets all of the technical stuff gone, and it will always work, which is pretty cool when it comes to it. Okay, so whenever you want to solve for a variable, the old-fashioned way, we had to do the factor. In other words, we'd have to factor this down and then solve for x accordingly, right? And the only way to solve for a trinomial, right, three-term one, was using something called the x method. Anybody heard of the x method before? Or the AC method before? I'm hoping, yeah. Well, at least I got yes. Okay, a couple yeses, cool. Now, how this x method works is it's always the first number times the last number you put on the top. So in other words, 3 times 2 is going to give you 6. Okay, and the bottom of the x, you're always going to put the middle term. In this case, the 5. Okay, and how this works out is you want to find two numbers. When you multiply, give you the top, and those two same numbers add to give you the bottom. Okay, and usually it's not too difficult because the numbers aren't as big, right? So 6 can break down to 6 times 1 or 2 times 3, and usually one of those is going to work, right? And 2 times 3 works, that gives you 6, and then 2 plus 3 also gives you 5, so they work. So those are essentially the numbers help us out. Okay. Now from this, usually you have to do some work and all that fun stuff. However, one of my students actually taught me something called the Snowflake Method, where you actually put a line like that. And underneath this line, you just put 3x, like that. Okay. And the reason why it's called a snowflake is because it actually looks like a snowflake, not an X anymore. And believe it or not, these are your factors there. So you're just going to put 3x plus 2 and 3x plus 3. And there you go. No work involved there, no dividing, anything at all. Because essentially, since we want to solve for a variable, all we're going to do is set each one equal to 0 and solve individually. So we're just going to put 3x plus 2 equals 0 and 3x plus 3 equals 0, and we just solve individually there. So in this case, we would subtract 2 and then divide by 3. So one of our answers are going to be negative 2/3. And then the other one, same thing. So we just subtract 3 and then divide by 3. So x is equal to negative 1. And there you go. Anybody seen that method before? You guys use that method? I was blown away. I really loved it. I was like, man, made it so much easier. Nice little shortcut.
I have a question.
What was that?
Have you tried like the X in the box method? Is that similar?
I've never heard that one either. X in the box method?
Okay.
Yeah. There's lots of ways, shortcuts people have taught me in the past. And I always like this one because people that come from, what is it called? What they're doing in high school, that Common Core, they teach them this way. And it was actually, so that's something I learned from them. It's pretty cool. Yeah, there's multiple ways to solve for the stuff like this or to factor. Now just going some shortcuts in here and there when it comes to it. But that's something I learned. I thought that was pretty quick when it comes to it. And then because all you do is those are your factors and you're pretty much set. So that's something I kind of liked in the past. But if you have another method, props on you. Go ahead and use that when it comes to it. Things like that. Okay. So cool. Any questions? Just a little fun little scenario there when it comes to it. Okay. So the next type of way we're going to learn how to to solve for a variable is, well, what if it's not in this format? What kind of is, right? So let's suppose we only have like an x squared. Like x squared equals some number, like 12. Then how do we solve for that? Because it's not no x. X method we only use when you have 3 terms. So to do so, we something called the square root property. And what the square root property is we literally take the square root of both sides. So take the square root of this side and that side. Now here's the problem. Whenever you take the square root of a squared, so in other words, like this. Yes, they do cancel, which is the best part, which is the most important thing we care about for this one. However, we actually get 2 answers, the positive and also the negative of that answer. Okay? So we always have 2 answers just like we would have here. So here's a simple example going over that. Let's suppose we have x squared equals -9. And what we do is just take the square root of both sides. So if we take the square root of both sides, those cancel. And again, we get the positive, which is just positive, and the negative of this portion there. Okay? And then since we have a negative, we just have an imaginary, which didn't go too much into detail, but that's pretty much our focus there. And then we just take the square root of 9, which we know is 3. So these are answers there. Okay? So the biggest takeaway is whenever you take the square root of a squared, you will always have 2 answers, the positive and also the negative of that number. Okay, that's the biggest takeaway when it comes to the square root property. Okay. The reason why we go through this little example here is because if we would be in class, again, this is if we would be in class, we would be doing something called the completing the square method. Okay. Now, when it comes to this method here, is let's suppose that we can't actually find 2 numbers that make this work. Okay. Let's suppose it's like a 7 and a 5. And, you know, the only thing that multiply give you 7 is 7 and 1. And when you add them, it doesn't give you 5. So we're kind of stuck. You know, we can't do this method to solve for it. Well, that's when it comes to this method here. It's all called the complete the square method. Okay. So we can use this to factor anything in the world. That's the best part. This works for any polynomial that looks in this form here. Okay, when it comes to it. Now, I'll be frank for you guys. I know whenever I teach this, even in class, everybody hates this method. So I get it. So all I'm going to do is give you guys like 1 or 2 examples, and then I'm going to give you the easy one. You guys are always going to be due for your homework anyways. So I just want to give you guys to show you guys where it came from. Okay, so just bear with me. So if you guys hate it, don't worry. We're going to do the shortcut to make it easier for yourself. But this is, you know, what started the shortcut method as we're about to learn right now. Okay. So to complete the square, or the process to completing the square, is the first we have to do is rewrite the equation so that c is on the other side of the terms, meaning we have to just bring c to that side. That's all we have to do. So either add or subtract it to the other side. That's the first step. The second step is we're going to divide the b term, so the middle number, by 2, and then square it. So we're going to divide it by 2 and then square that number. Okay? And then once we do that, we're going to add it to both sides. So we're going to add it to this side and add it to that side. Okay? And then from there, we're going to factor the left-hand side. And it's going to end up, believe it or not, looking like this. Or in other words, like our square root property. And that's when it comes to subtracting to both sides when it comes to it. Okay? So looks like in maths, it's not that difficult, but you know, all students hate this this method, but you know, the other method everybody likes. But you know, I just want to show you guys where this method actually comes into play. Okay, so let's suppose we have this example here. Okay. 7x squared plus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Okay. Now, if you tried it, this will not actually work. Because 7 times 1 is 7. Bottom number is 4. Right? So you can't actually find 2 numbers when you multiply give you 7 and also add up to give you 4. So this is a scenario where this doesn't work. Right? Old-fashioned factoring doesn't work. Okay? So that's why, you know, completing the square is a big deal when it comes to it. Okay? So we're going to follow the process we have here. So step 1, this is our c value. We have to bring this to the other side. So in this case, since it's addition, we're just going to subtract it to the other side. Just like that. So we're done with step 1. Nice and easy. Step 2. We're going to divide the b term by 2, then square it. So our b term is 4. So we're going to do 4 divided by 2, and then square it. So let's see. 4 divided by 2, that's 2. And then squaring it, gives us 4 back. Okay, so we did that. And then we're going to add it to both sides. So we're going to add it to this side and add it to that side. So if you're wondering, what does that mean? We're literally going to add at the end. Just like that. Literally just add it to both sides. Okay. And now we go to step 3. So step 3, we're actually going to factor it completely. Okay. So remember the rules of factoring. Trinomial, you can do an X method if you like. So now it should work. 7 times 4 is 28, and that gives you 4. Two numbers when you multiply give you 28 to add up to give you 4. So this one might have to work out. So let's see. So we know 7 and 4 work, but that doesn't give you 4. What other two numbers do we have? 14 and 2 doesn't work. What do you guys think? Any numbers you guys can think of to do that? No, nothing works. -7, -4. Close. Seven and 3, almost. That gives you 21. So whenever you're not sure, let's break it down. So we know 14 and 2 work, 7 and 4 work, and any other numbers that work out there. Does 3 go into it? It's 24. No, 4 goes. We did 4. 6. Does 6 go into it? It's 37. Is that the only ones? That can't be true. Right, 4 times 80. 4 times 40 is 28. Now I'm second guessing myself. Oh, they're imaginary. Oh, I picked the wrong question. No wonder. Scratch this one. We're not going to do this one. Let's do one that actually works out. There we go. This one will actually work out. I don't want to deal with imaginary numbers and help you guys out. Yeah, let's do this one instead. Let's scratch that one out. I don't want to deal with imaginary numbers. I'm going to give you guys actual whole numbers. Okay, let's do this one real quick. So let me just quickly go over this one here. So then 14 over 2 squared. So that's going to be 7 squared gives you 49. So it could be 8 squared plus 14x plus 49. And then on this side, same thing. Okay, so we have 8x squared plus 14x plus 49 equals, that's 46. Yeah, 46. Now, notice it says x minus h squared. Okay. Now, believe it or not, because it could be pretty much right. I don't know what 8 times 49 is, but it's a really, really, really big number. And you know, do I really want to do the x method for all that? I'm like, no, not really, right? But you actually don't have to, which is the cool part, because this h value right here is actually already done for you. It's actually the number inside the parentheses you actually use. So this is the same thing. If you want to factor it completely, it gives you x plus 7 squared equals 46. It's just a quick little shortcut when it comes to it. So if you really want to factor this all the way down, you would get the exact same thing as well, which is a pretty interesting concept. Okay. And this is why people don't like this method, right? When it comes to it. Don't worry. We'll get to the easy one in a little bit. Well, before we go any for questions, any questions so far? How we got here? I don't want to lose everybody. Cool.
About the 46, do we just leave it there?
Yeah, we'll just leave it there for now.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So now what we want to, oh, so any other questions? Yes, how? Yes, how, what do you mean? How I got there? Like which step? Like how do I get from here to here, or where are you asking from? Oh, I see what you're saying. Not gonna. Oh, yeah, you're right. -7. What am I dealing with? I'm all lost because of that last example. Yeah, it is -7 because it's a minus. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for saying that. Yeah. So it'd be -7 because it's a -7. Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you for telling me that. Yeah. Thank you for catching that. So the reason why it's negative because it's a minus h. So minus the 7 squared. Yeah. So now that we have this, all we're going to do is take the square root of both sides. So when it comes to taking the square root of both sides, it's going to be literally like that. So we'll have x minus 7 because these cancel, and we have plus the square root of 46, and x minus 7 minus equals the negative of the square root of 46. Okay. And then all we're going to do is just add 7 to both sides. So we have 7 or x plus equals 7 plus this, and then the other one is 7 minus this. Again, a messy one. Hence the reason why not a lot of people like completing the square at all. Now, before you guys go crazy, like, oh man, I really have to do this. Not really. I'm going to help you guys out. So because of that, I'm going to give you guys a shortcut. And basically, for the quiz and the exam, you guys can just use a shortcut. You know, I'm not going to be that picky when it comes to it. Okay. So what is the shortcut all about? And the shortcut is actually something called a quadratic formula, which makes half of this go away essentially when it comes to it. Okay. So what I mean by that is a lot of this stuff comes into play, but now all you have to do is plug in the numbers where they're supposed to be and just slowly simplify. Okay. So in other words, it takes half the work to just do one problem instead of lots of work to deal with just one single problem here. Okay. So for example, so another way to solve for a quadratic is using this force method. Now, all you have to do is plug it in and you're eventually good. So remember, our general formula looks like this. And all you do is plug in what the letters are here into these formula here. So for example, we would plug in the 8 in for the A, the 14 in for the B, and the 3 in for C, and just slowly simplify, and we get our final answer, believe it or not. Okay. Now, again, you won't have to memorize this because you guys have notes for your quiz and exams, so that's even better. But you know, going forward, once we go back to class or you're taking more math, you're gonna have to memorize this one. So fun little concept if you guys want to know how to memorize this. When I was in algebra, my teacher gave us a song how to memorize it. So the way I memorized it was a little song that went like this. It said, a negative boy couldn't decide to go to a house party. He was being squared and missed out on 4 awesome chicks. And it was all over at 2 a.m. So that's how I memorized this, and it stuck with me ever since I was in high school. So if you guys are wondering, you know, that's the best for like the ABCs, right? Learning the ABCs from a song. That was the best way to deal with it there. So hopefully I gave you guys a little chuckle or laugh how to do it. But you know, I always do that. I always remember that just because of that when it comes to it. So you guys can more than happy to take that with you. You guys are curious about that. So fun stuff. I always like that kind of stuff scenario. Anybody heard of that one before or heard of a different one? I know there's a song of it as well. No? Still laughing at my little scenario? No. I always liked it when it comes to it. Okay. So how would this work out? So let's suppose we want this one here. Give the correct one here. So let's suppose we want to solve for this. Okay. And I'm pretty sure you don't want to complete the square because, you know, completing the square is a complete pain, right? As usual. So we want to use the quadratic formula. So for quadratic formula, all we need is the numbers in front of the x's and the single c there. And all we're going to do is plug it respectively, each one where they're supposed to be in. So this is going to be A, B, and C. So let's just plug it in. So it's going to be x equals minus b, so minus 16, plus or minus square root of b squared, so 16 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, minus 15, because that's c, and divided by 2 times 3. Okay. So all I did was plug in the numbers where they're supposed to be respectively to the letters they have. And then at this point, we just simplify. So 16 squared, let's see when we get it using a calculator. So that gives us 256 minus 4 times 3 is 12 times 15 is 180. All divided by 6. Okay. And again, we just simplify one last step. So 256 minus 180 is 76, all divided by 6. And there you go. Those are your two answers. So look at that, a lot less work per problem, right, when it comes to it. Any questions so far? No questions?
Is that the final answer?
Yep, those are your two final answers. So you have, so if you really want, some people separate them, but you don't have to. You could do it like this. But the same thing, right? This plus or minus means you get both the answers into one. Or you could just separate them, whichever you choose when it comes to it.
Okay.
So if you actually did the long way of completing the square, you would get the exact same answers, which is, the fun thing. So let's try another one. Give you guys more practice using this equation. So let's try this example here. Let's try negative 2x squared plus 6x plus 5 equals 0. So this is going to be A, this is B, and that is C, right, in our scenario now. So just plug it in. It's going to be minus 6 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 5, because that's A and C, all over 2 times negative 2. And again, all we do now is just simplify everything down. So this is 36. This is now going to be plus 40, because negative makes it positive. All over negative 4. And then lastly, add the insides. So 36 plus 40 gives you 76 again. All over now negative 4. And again, you can leave it just like that. Now again, when you do this homework, if you look in the back of the book, the answers will look a little different, but they're going to be the same thing. They just simplified it. For example, like if this is like a homework question, if you look in the back of the book, the answers may look like this. Again, it's just simplified. I'm happy with just that. You don't have to go the extra step if you don't want to. Okay, they are the same thing. One is just simplified than the other one. Same thing applies here. If you simplify, you get a little different answers, but they're the same thing anyways. Any questions on this example?
Well, so we never have to like simplify it fully.
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy just doing that.
All right.
So like if you guys are wondering, let's say for a quiz or an exam, right? If I asked you like, solve for this would probably be like an essay type of question where you would to type in the answers, and that way I want you guys to get comfortable using the symbols of math and using the equations. That way you could type this in the box, right? And if you want, you could do this, but if you're comfortable, you're perfectly fine just putting that in. Yeah. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, let's do one more for fun now. Which one should we do? Yeah, let's do this one. Okay. So I don't know, I don't know your name. I forgot you asked me, you don't have to do this, but let's suppose you can, and it just makes it easier. Like here's an example which actually isn't too bad to simplify. Okay, and we'll do this one together. So again, this case, so this will be A, B, and C. Okay. And now, so therefore, if we plug it into our formula, it's going to be minus 5 plus or minus 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times 2 all over 2 times 3. And again, if we just simplify, just like we did for the last two, this is now 25, and this is now 24, and this is 6. So subtracting in the inside of the radical, we get 1 and that. So pop quiz, what's the square root of 1? Uh-oh. What do you guys think? What's the square root of 1? Use your calculator. Yep, just 1. So this actually is nice to simplify. So this is now minus 5 plus or minus 1 all over 6. So you can actually get nice numbers from here. So the first one would be x equals minus 5 minus 1 over 6. And the other one is x equals minus 5 plus 1 over 6. So these end up giving really actually, nice numbers because negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. And over here you get negative 5 plus 1 gives you negative 4 over 6. So this one's just negative 1. And this is just this one itself. Right? So sometimes, you can simplify it because it lets you, right? Like for instance, if you had a square root of 4, you could break it down because the square root of 4 is 2, and eventually just add, subtract that accordingly. Does that answer your question as from before? Hopefully.
So could I simplify the negative 4 and 6 to like negative 2/3?
Yep, that's perfectly fine as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So here's a scenario, right? Because I don't know what the square root of 76 is, and you don't have to break it down if you don't want to. But if you actually know what it is, like 1 or 4 or 25, you know what the actual number is. That gives you nice numbers at the end. You can simplify down to. Yeah. So it really just depends on the problem when it comes to yeah. Any other questions for quadratics? And again, on the homework, when it asks you to complete the square, you're more than happy to just use the quadratic formula. I'm not going to be that picky because I know on the test, it's online. So it's like, I don't know what method you're doing. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be the quadratic formula anyway. So I'm just going to just go ahead and use it when it comes to it.